The wonders of life got the prettiest side for everyone to enjoy. Standing up close by the Christmas tree, glimmering light, I am right where I wanna be. I will be home for a couple of days, wander around with you. You and me in the cold, thought it'd never be true. Wherever I go, I got you. Oh, I have stopped running, there is no way trying. You better loosen your belt. Drinking hot wine by the fire, don't care of anything else. It's Christmas.
Hello everyone, and welcome to 25 Days of Christmas, an Advent podcast where we talk about a Christmas movie or special every day until December 25th. I'm Patricia, and I'm here with my sister Carlene.
Hello everyone.
Today we're going to be discussing about the 2004 animated film, The Polar Express. And this is going to be a really interesting one because even though it came out almost 20 years ago, this has already become a pop culture staple. There's like train rides that are actually themed with the Polar Express. And also it was...
I heard one of the songs today on the Spotify radio, like top Christmas music.
Oh, really?
And one of the hot chocolate songs.
Oh, yeah, the hot chocolate song, yeah. Mm-hmm. Yeah, and also, not to mention that this was the very first ever motion capture film ever made. Yeah, I think we should talk about it. So,
which I don't really know what that means. What is motion capture?
Motion capture is kind of like where they actually have the motion of the actors, like they put like the little dots on them, and they have the suits on, and then they move along with the scenes, and then they animate right on top of it.
Awesome.
Yeah, so this was the very first one that's ever been done like that.
I didn't know that.
Yeah, this was really interesting. Let's talk about it. So, a young boy, simply called Hero Boy, is having doubts about whether Santa Claus exists. One night around Christmas Eve, a giant train comes by in the middle of the road, because, of course, every train does that, and is going over to the North Pole. The train is called the Polar Express, and several other children are going over there as well, such as Hero Girl, the Lonely Boy, the Know-It-All, and Kid Number 2. So the conductor tells them that they're going over to the North Pole, and for them to enjoy themselves is they're going to be able to have the chance to see Santa Claus, and one of the kids will be able to get a chance to get a gift from Santa himself. The kid has doubts. He meets up with a hobo. The Hero Girl and the Lonely Boy, they get left behind on the train, and they try to find themselves over to the North Pole to meet up with Santa. And then along the way, he finally meets up with Santa, and he starts learning about the true meaning of Christmas and believing in Santa himself. So, yeah, this is a really simple story based off of a book. Yeah, I think we should get into it. So, what did we like about this movie?
I think it's interesting. This must be, like, I rarely know the backstories to how things are created, like who's involved, production, and writers.
Yeah.
That's Patty's specialty.
Yeah.
But, like, it doesn't surprise me that someone who wrote a story like Jumanji wrote this story, because Jumanji is so intricate and interesting, and it has so many layers, and there's, like, this almost, like, subconscious level that if you're, like, maybe in tune with, maybe it's subliminal, maybe there's something else going on, and it's, like a depiction of something else, like the narrative. And like the Polar Express has that. Like, maybe some of you may be familiar with some of the rumors attached to some of the characters and the roles they play.
Yeah.
Like the conductor and the hobo man and the little boy, how they are somehow connected, and his belief in Santa is linked to which path he may go down. And there's parts throughout the story that don't really makes sense fully for the story, but it's because I think there's like another layer below it. Mm-hmm. So the fact that like the writer wrote a kind of like a multi-layered movie or story like Jumanji, and now this makes sense.
Yeah, I mean, Jumanji is fairly basic. It's a board game, but the board game, things come to life.
Yeah.
And here, a little boy doesn't really believe in Santa. Here comes a giant train going to the North Pole.
Yeah, I think that the story, like the story is interesting. It's enjoyable, but the movie itself is really enjoyable too. Like in the way that it was, the animation. Now that I understand a little bit about that too, that it's wonderful animation.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and given that
colors,
the colors and light, yeah, for sure. I know that there's some things about it that seem a little dated by today's standards when looking into the eyes of the characters. Some people call it the uncanny valley. It's like, oh, they look too realistic, but they're acting cartoony, which I completely understand. I mean, this was the first motion capture movie ever made, and technology has gotten a lot better since then, so I can understand that.
Yeah, I think also, too, like, if you become really fixated on a style, like a stylistic genre, you may like see all the little details and how things operate well or not. But like if you're someone like me has seen, you know, animation and, you know, stop motion with clay and like dolls, and when you've seen like some very early on, I don't know, like explosions. Remember, like we were watching the sci-fi movies. Go back and watch some sci-fi movies from the 60s and the 70s. Or even go further back, and then maybe you'll have a little more appreciation.
Yeah, like
you're less critical of small, minute details.
Yeah.
And you just like appreciate it for what it is.
Sure.
You know? I mean, obviously, the first of its kind is always going to have a lot of room for improvement.
Mm-hmm.
And 20 years, I can only imagine that's come a huge long way. I mean, we were watching. Like, our family is separate from this, you know, podcast. We were watching Beauty and the Beast, the live action, yesterday.
Yes.
They have that same kind of for the Beast.
Yeah, they actually had the actor in the stilts, and they were dancing around to it, and then...
the whole costume, like, he's wearing, like, this gray costume that has that. So when he's moving, you know, later on, they come back with animation and make him and create a beast. And it looks great, you know? Mm-hmm. So, like, 20 years of it, you're going to see maybe less of that.
Mm-hmm.
But the story is really cool. I mean, Polar Express is interesting for me because it's a movie that I've watched, obviously, in the past, and I didn't know it came out 20 years ago, so whoa, time's flying.
Yeah, 2004, it's crazy.
And I don't even know if I watched it when it first came out. Somewhere along the line, I think we watched it.
Our younger cousins may have seen it maybe around, like, when this movie came out.
Yeah, I think it took maybe me and Pat, or even just me, a little while longer to watch it a few years ago.
Yeah.
And I liked it, but I didn't really kind of like pay too much mind to it.
Right.
Watching it again, I enjoyed it a little more. You know, I think it's well done.
Mm-hmm.
I like the pace of the story.
Yeah.
I like the little boy's character. I like that things don't feel too overdone. The only thing that sometimes feels a little bit like you're maybe trying to figure out is like the hobo character, what's going on there. There's two conductors on the train that their characters are a little bit long. They're a little bit interesting.
Oh yeah, the engineers, yeah.
Yeah, and so like there's teeny little things, and if I may say, there's one thing that I might put as not a criticism, I wouldn't say, but I always feel like elves and like the North Pole is so whimsical and magical, and it just feels like even though you have these characters or like these creatures, if you would, working almost all year round creating toys, it almost feels like they don't feel like it's work. But the only thing I might mention is like in this movie, it almost looks like work. Like like the North Pole, it looks really nicely done. Yeah. But it looks too manufactured. Yeah. It looks like a small town or whatever size town, if you would, of like industrial buildings.
Yeah, I've seen interpretations where it looks like a factory or it looks like a classic workshop or little houses.
Yeah, super cute. But this one, it felt more industrial. It felt more like work. So part of it, like there's some scenes where they're working and they're like ready to call out to work and go and do something else.
Yeah, and then there was this
a little bit too close to home. Like these poor elves, like working a 9 to 5 and they're tired and they need a little break.
Yeah, and then it's almost midnight and they're still trying to make a last minute decision on whether a boy should be on the naughty list.
Yeah, so I think that was a little bit too realistic for me. I was hoping for a little more magical. And some of these elves, like, they had these kind of like raspy voices, and I'm like, who's a smoker, who's a drinker? Like, it just kind of felt like...
Yeah, and then you have like the Jewish elf, it's like, what are you, Meshuggah?
Yeah, so I just kind of felt like I would have personally liked for the elves to be a little more whimsical. I think I like my elves to be a little more whimsical.
Yeah, like, I mean, I guess that's true. We've seen our fair share of elves this month.
I think, yeah.
Yeah, Rudolph, Elf, so...
Yeah, I think I'm getting to a place, maybe that's how it goes.
Santa Claus is coming to town.
Yeah, I'm getting to a place where I'm starting to, like, find out what hits home, and, like, it's a little bit of this and a little bit of that, like... I like the Santa depicted here. He felt more like a real person.
Yeah.
But the elves were a little bit too real. So I want to dial it back a bit and maybe add a little sprinkle of magic in there.
Yeah.
And I felt like the lady elves were too closely looked like boy elves. So I would want it to be a little more like romantic. I don't know. That's me where I'm at.
I get what you're saying.
Yeah, but overall,
I think another criticism that you also had was the know-it-all.
Yeah, he was a little bit annoying in some scenes. And then that voice is really irritating.
Yeah, and it's Eddie Deason. That's how he sounds in real life.
Wow.
Yeah, I mean, you remember...
Sorry about that.
Yeah, he's a little deeper, but it's that same nasally voice. You remember that nerdy character in Grease? You know, the guy on the stairs, right, that's him.
Oh, wow. Yeah, it's a little bit like... I can take him a little bit. I understand his character, and there are moments where even though he's annoying, he's like, he recognizes that like he's maybe gone too far. He's like, oh, sorry, you know?
Yeah.
But that nasally voice is a little bit too much for me, and
Yeah, and it's also interesting that Tom Hanks plays 4 or 5 characters in this movie.
Yeah, and the crazy thing is he has such a distinctive way of being and sound that like you can identify him in all of that.
Yeah.
You're like, hey, is that Tom Hanks? Hey, is that Tom Hanks?
Yeah, exactly. He's the father, he's the conductor, he's the hobo, he's Santa, and he plays the older version of the hero boy. And I guess it makes a lot of sense because it was directed by Robert Zemeckis, and he also directed Forrest Gump and Castaway, so he knew Tom Hanks from those movies, and so he brought him in to do this one.
Yeah, and I think you were telling me that they were thinking of having someone else instead of Tom Hanks.
Yes, I think it was, who was it? I think it was Jim Carrey or something?
Yeah. If that's the case, then I think they did a really good job bringing Tom Hanks.
Yeah, because Jim Carrey, he already did The Grinch.
And no, but like also like Jim Carrey is funny and enjoyable, but there's something about Tom Hanks that has kind of like that more wise, more subtle storyteller voice.
Robert Zemeckis would bring Jim Carrey into a motion capture film a few years later with A Christmas Carol, the motion capture one where he plays a Scrooge.
I don't think I've seen that one.
I've heard about it, but I have never seen it. It'll be interesting.
Yeah.
Anyway, so let's give our final thoughts into how we would see this movie. Should we see it every year, every few years, or just once and never again?
I think that if you're looking for a Christmas movie that you can watch with your family, you can enjoy with yourself, even if no one's around, a movie that puts you in the Christmas spirit, it has nostalgia, it has beautiful music, it has an interesting story, and it gives you the Christmas vibe. Like, this is a Christmas movie. And if you have to choose one movie, then probably it won't be this one. But if, like us, you're spending the whole month of December or a few weeks of the month, or a few movies, I would add it. So I would add Polar Express to your every year.
Me too.
I would add it to mine.
I would too, and especially for the younger generation where they have grown up with this movie. So, yeah, I definitely would say every year. All right, let's rate it.
That's the tricky part. I think I would give it a 3.5 Santas.
Me too. I would give it 3.5 Santas as well. All right, so that is it for our discussion of the Polar Express. Let us know in the comments below about what your thoughts of the movie are. If you can, please share this video, give it a like, subscribe, tell your friends about it. Let us know about some other Christmas movies or specials that you want us to talk about. That's it. Tune in next time as we talk about another Christmas movie or special. Until then, we'll see you later.
Bye, guys.
Gaze upon the sky, Christmas on my mind, somewhere from a place up high above. There's a song of love